The transport ship shook as it landed on the desert planet Corvin Prime. Ben Miller sat in chains, watching the red sand blow past the small window. 3 weeks ago, he had been a simple cargo hauler. Now he was a prisoner of the most dangerous warrior race in the galaxy. The Corvani soldiers dragged him from the ship. They stood 8 feet tall with 4 powerful arms and thick armor plating covering their gray skin. Their eyes glowed yellow in the harsh sunlight. Ben looked small next to them, just an ordinary human in worn clothes. "Move, soft skin," growled Captain Thok, shoving Ben forward with one of his 4 hands. "The Queen wants to see what humans look like when they die." They walked through the massive stone city. Corvini citizens stopped to stare at the strange prisoner. Children pointed at his pale skin and 2 arms. Adults laughed and made jokes about how weak he looked. The grand arena rose before them like a mountain of black stone. Thousands of Corvani filled the seats, their voices creating a thunderous roar. In the center sat a throne carved from a single piece of red crystal. On it sat Queen Zara. Ben had heard stories about her. She had never lost a fight. She had killed her own father to claim the throne. Her 4 arms could crush steel. Her armor was made from the bones of defeated enemies. But seeing her in person was different. Queen Zara was beautiful in a terrifying way. Her armor gleamed like black metal. Her yellow eyes seemed to see everything. When she spoke, the entire arena fell silent. "Bring the human forward," she commanded. The guards pushed Ben onto the sand of the arena floor. The crowd began to cheer and laugh. Someone threw food at him. Another shouted insults about his weak appearance. Queen Zara studied him from her throne. "So this is what humans look like, small, weak, only 2 arms." She turned to her advisor, a scarred old warrior named General Crix. "How long do you think he will last?" "Perhaps 30 seconds, my queen," Crix replied. "Maybe less if he shows fear." "What crime did he commit?" asked the queen. "He defended a Terran colony ship from our raiders," Captain Thok reported. "He destroyed 3 of our fighters before we captured him." Queen Zara raised an eyebrow. "Interesting. A soft skin with some spirit." She stood up and addressed the crowd. "Citizens of Corvin, today we see what happens when weak races try to resist our might. Let this human face champion Brutok in single combat." The crowd erupted in cheers. A massive gate opened on the far side of the arena. Out walked the largest Corvani Ben had ever seen. Brutok stood 9 feet tall and weighed at least 400 pounds. His 4 arms each held a different weapon: an energy sword, a plasma cannon, a crushing mace, and an electric whip. Brutok raised his weapons and roared. The sound echoed off the arena walls. The crowd chanted his name. He had never lost a fight in 50 battles. "Human," Queen Zara called out. "You may choose 1 weapon from our armory." Ben looked at the rack of alien weapons near the arena wall. Energy swords that could cut through steel, plasma rifles that could melt armor, battle axes that weighed more than he did. He walked over and examined them carefully. Then he did something that shocked everyone. He turned away from the weapons and walked back to the center of the arena empty-handed. "I don't need a weapon," he said simply. The crowd fell silent. Even Queen Zara leaned forward in surprise. No one had ever entered the arena without weapons. "It was suicide." Brutok laughed, a deep rumbling sound. "The little soft skin wants to die quickly." "I will grant his wish," the horn sounded to begin the fight. Brutok charged forward, all 4 weapons raised. His massive feet shook the sand as he ran. The crowd held its breath. Ben did not run. He did not try to dodge. Instead, he dropped into a low stance and waited. His muscles relaxed. His breathing slowed. He watched Brutok's movement with calm eyes. When Brutok swung his energy sword down toward Ben's head, something amazing happened. Ben moved like flowing water. He stepped to the side at the last second and grabbed Brutok's sword arm. Using the alien's own momentum, he twisted and threw the massive warrior over his shoulder. Brutok crashed into the sand with a loud thud. His weapons scattered across the arena floor. The crowd gasped in shock. "Impossible," whispered General Crix. "How did such a small creature throw Brutok?" Queen Zara said nothing. Her yellow eyes were fixed on the human, studying every move he made. Brutok rolled to his feet and roared in anger. He grabbed his plasma cannon and fired 3 shots at Ben. The energy bolts moved faster than bullets, but Ben was already moving. He ducked under the first shot, rolled away from the second, and jumped over the third. Each movement was perfectly timed. He seemed to know where Brutok would aim before the alien did. He fights like he can see the future. murmured someone in the crowd. Ben closed the distance between them. When Brutok swung his crushing mace, Ben caught the handle and used it as a lever. He planted his feet and pulled. The physics were simple. A small force applied at the right point could move a much larger mass. Brutok found himself pulled off balance. Ben swept his legs and sent him crashing down again. This time he kept hold of the mace, twisting it from Brutok's grip. The crowd was no longer laughing. They watched in stunned silence as the tiny human outfought their greatest champion. Queen Zara gripped the arms of her throne, her knuckles white. Brutok grabbed his electric whip and lashed out. The weapon crackled with deadly energy. But Ben had studied the pattern of his attacks. He knew the whip would come from the left. He stepped right and caught the weapon in midair. The electricity coursed through his body. It should have killed him instantly. Instead, Ben gritted his teeth and held on. Human nervous systems were different from Corvani ones. The voltage that would stop an alien heart only caused him pain. Using the whip like a rope, Ben pulled Brutok toward him. When the massive alien stumbled forward, Ben struck. His fist hit specific points on Brutok's armor, finding the weak spots where the plates joined. These were pressure points that even the Corvani did not know about their own bodies. Brutok's left arms went numb. Then his right arms. He stared in confusion as his weapons fell from nerveless fingers. "What sorcery is this?" he gasped. "Not sorcery," Ben replied. "Just anatomy." He moved behind Brutok and applied what humans called a sleeper hold. The big alien struggled, but Ben had positioned himself perfectly. All of Brutok's strength meant nothing when he could not breathe. In 30 seconds, the greatest champion of Corvin fell unconscious. Ben could have snapped his neck. He could have crushed his windpipe. Instead, he gently lowered Brutok to the sand and checked his pulse. The alien was alive and unhurt. The arena was completely silent. 10,000 Corvani stared at the small human standing over their fallen champion. No one seemed to believe what they had just seen. Queen Zara slowly stood up. Her voice carried clearly across the arena. "In 50 years of rule, I have never seen anything like this," she said. "The human defeated our greatest warrior without weapons, without armor, without even injuring him seriously." She paused and looked directly at Ben. "Tell me, human, what is your name?" "Ben Miller, Your Majesty." Ben Miller. She tested the foreign sounds. "You fight with techniques unknown to us. You show mercy to a defeated enemy. You use wisdom instead of strength." Her voice grew thoughtful. "These are not the ways of a weak race." General Crix leaned close to whisper something, but Queen Zara waved him away. Her eyes never left Ben. "You could have killed Brutok easily," she continued. "Why did you spare him?" Ben looked around the arena, meeting the stares of thousands of aliens. "Where I come from, we believe that true strength comes from protecting others, not destroying them. Brutok was beaten. There was no honor in killing a helpless enemy." Queen Zara was quiet for a long moment. The crowd waited for her judgment. In Corvani law, a defeated prisoner could be executed or enslaved. No one expected mercy. "Your words are strange to us, Ben Miller," she said finally, "but your actions speak of a warrior's heart." She raised her voice so all could hear. "By the laws of combat, you have earned the right to live another day." The crowd murmured in surprise. It was unusual, but not unheard of. "However," Queen Zara continued, "I am not satisfied with just one victory. Any warrior can win through luck or chance." Her lips curved in what might have been a smile. "If you can defeat 5 more champions, I will grant you an audience in my throne room. Refuse, and you will be executed at dawn." Ben felt his heart sink. Fighting one Corvani warrior had taken everything he had. 5 more seemed impossible, but he had no choice. "I accept your challenge, Your Majesty." Queen Zara nodded approvingly. "Good. Your first opponent will fight you tomorrow. Use tonight to rest and prepare," she signaled to the guards. "Take him to the gladiator quarters. See that he is fed and given medical attention if needed." As the guards led Ben away, Queen Zara remained standing. She watched him walk across the sand with measured steps, showing no fear despite the impossible odds he faced. "My queen," General Crix said quietly, "why give him more chances? He is only one human." Queen Zara did not answer immediately. She was thinking about the way Ben had fought. Not with rage or bloodlust, but with calm intelligence. He had turned Brutok's strength against him. He had found weaknesses that no Corvani warrior would have seen. "General," she said finally, "in all our conquests we have never faced an enemy like this. The humans may look weak, but this one just defeated our best champion without breaking a sweat. She paused. I want to understand how he did it. But there was something else, something she did not say aloud. As she had watched Ben fight, she had seen qualities that no Corvani possessed. Honor without weakness, strength without cruelty, victory without pride. For the first time in her life, Queen Zara had seen a warrior who fought not to prove his dominance, but to protect what he believed in. It was a concept so foreign to Corvani culture that she barely understood it, yet something deep inside her responded to it. As the arena emptied and the sun set over the desert city, Queen Zara remained on her throne. She stared at the sand where Ben had stood victorious and whispered words that would have shocked anyone who heard them. What kind of man are you, Ben Miller? And what would our empire become with warriors like you at our side? The questions haunted her as night fell over Corvin Prime. Tomorrow would bring new battles, new tests of the strange human's abilities. But tonight, Queen Zara found herself thinking not of conquest and war, but of the quiet dignity she had seen in the enemy's eyes. In the gladiator quarters below, Ben sat on a simple bed and tended to his bruises. He had won one battle, but 5 more awaited. The odds were still against him, yet he felt oddly hopeful. Something in Queen Zara's voice had suggested that this was about more than just entertainment. She was testing him, studying him, trying to understand something about humans that she had never encountered before. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. But tonight, both human and alien queen went to sleep thinking about the other, wondering what the morning would reveal. The morning sun cast long shadows across the arena floor as Ben prepared for his second fight. Word of his victory over Brutok had spread throughout the city. The stands were packed with curious Corvani who wanted to see the strange human warrior. Queen Zara took her place on the crystal throne. Today she wore ceremonial armor of deep blue, marking this as an important event. Her yellow eyes found Ben immediately as he entered the arena. Citizens of Corvin, her voice boomed across the stadium. Today the human faces champion Velcra, master of the twin blades. The gates opened and out stepped a female Corvani warrior. Velcra was smaller than Brutok but moved with deadly grace. Her forearms held matching energy swords that hummed with power. She had fought in 100 battles and never been touched by an enemy weapon. Human, Velcra called out in a voice like silk over steel. I have studied your fight with Brutok. You will not surprise me so easily. Ben nodded respectfully. I would expect nothing less from a warrior of your reputation. The horn sounded. Velcra did not charge like Brutok had done. Instead, she circled Ben slowly, her swords weaving complex patterns in the air. She was testing his reactions, looking for weaknesses. Ben turned to keep her in sight, but he did not attack. He watched her footwork, the rhythm of her movements, the way she held her weapons. Every fighter had patterns, even the best ones. Velcra struck without warning. Her 4 swords came from different angles in a coordinated assault that should have cut Ben into pieces. But the human was not where her blades expected him to be. Ben had learned something important from fighting Brutok. Corvani warriors were used to opponents who fought with pure strength or aggression. They were not prepared for someone who fought with patience and observation. As Velcra's swords whistled through empty air, Ben stepped inside her guard. He grabbed her right wrists and used a joint lock that made her drop 2 swords. Before she could react, he spun behind her and applied pressure to specific points on her neck. Velcra found herself unable to move her left arms. The human had done something to her nervous system again, just like with Brutok. Impossible, she gasped. How do you know our anatomy better than we do? I don't, Ben replied, staying behind her where her remaining swords could not reach him. But all intelligent species share certain biological basics. Nerve clusters, pressure points, blood flow patterns. You just have to know where to look. Velcra tried to break free, but Ben's position was perfect. She could not use her size advantage. Her remaining weapons were useless. In frustration, she threw herself backward, trying to crush him against the arena wall. Ben saw it coming. As Velcra fell backward, he simply stepped aside and let her crash into the stone. The impact knocked her unconscious. Again, Ben checked to make sure his opponent was not seriously hurt. He even positioned her carefully so she would be comfortable when she woke up. The crowd was amazed. Queen Zara leaned forward, studying every detail of how Ben moved and fought. 2 victories, she announced. Tomorrow, champion Throck the Enduring. Over the following days, Ben faced his remaining challengers. Each fight was different, each one testing a new aspect of his abilities. Throck the Enduring was built like a stone wall and never seemed to tire. But Ben had grown up on a farming world where people worked from dawn to dusk. While Throck relied on his natural stamina, Ben knew how to pace himself, how to conserve energy, and how to make every movement count. The fight lasted 3 hours before Throck finally collapsed from exhaustion, while Ben still stood steady. Champion Zex was a master of psychological warfare who tried to confuse and frighten his opponents. But Ben had learned to control his emotions during years of dangerous space travel. While Zex roared and threatened and tried to intimidate him, Ben remained calm and focused. When Zex finally attacked in frustration, Ben was ready and defeated him easily. The fifth champion was Gorvak the Clever, who used advanced technology and tactical thinking. He had studied all of Ben's previous fights and came prepared with counter-strategies. But Ben showed him something that no amount of study could prepare for: pure human adaptability. Every time Gorvak tried a new tactic, Ben adjusted his own approach. By the end of the fight, Ben was using Gorvak's own weapons against him. Between the fights, something unexpected happened. Ben began helping the defeated champions recover from their injuries. He showed them human medical techniques for treating bruises and sprains. He taught them breathing exercises to help with pain. The other gladiators were amazed. In Corvani culture, defeated warriors were often mocked or ignored. But Ben treated them with respect and kindness. Soon gladiators from all over the complex were coming to him for advice and treatment. Queen Zara noticed this too. She often visited the gladiator quarters in disguise, watching how Ben interacted with the other fighters. She saw him sharing his food with injured warriors. She heard him encouraging young gladiators who had lost badly. She watched him settle disputes between different species with wisdom and fairness. "He fights like a warrior but acts like a healer," she confided to General Crix one evening. "I have never seen anything like it." "My queen," Crix replied carefully. "The human has defeated 5 champions now. By law, you must grant him an audience. But what will you do then? Release him? Execute him?" Queen Zara was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know," she admitted. "But I know that Ben Miller is not like any prisoner we have ever taken." The night before his final battle, Ben sat in his small room writing a letter on a piece of paper one of the gladiators had given him. He was writing to his sister back on Earth even though he might never be able to send it. A soft knock came at his door. Ben opened it to find a hooded figure in plain clothes. "May I come in?" asked a familiar voice. Ben's eyes widened as he recognized Queen Zara. She had removed her royal armor and crown, dressing like a common citizen. "Your Majesty," he said, bowing his head. "Of course." She entered and looked around the simple room. "I wanted to speak with you before tomorrow's fight." "About my audience, Your Majesty?" "No," she said quietly. "About why you helped the other gladiators. In our culture, showing kindness to defeated enemies is seen as weakness." Ben considered his words carefully. "Where I come from, we believe that how you treat others when you don't have to says more about your character than how you act when people are watching." Queen Zara nodded slowly. "Your people have strange ideas about strength." "Maybe," Ben agreed. "But those ideas have served us well. Humans have survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and disasters that should have destroyed us. We survived because we learned to help each other instead of just fighting each other. And yet you are a formidable warrior." "I fight when I have to," Ben said, "to protect others, to defend what's right. But fighting isn't the only kind of strength." Queen Zara was quiet for several minutes. Finally, she asked, "Tomorrow you face my brother, Commander Vex. He is my greatest general and my closest advisor. He has never been defeated in combat." "I understand, Your Majesty. Do you?" she asked, studying his face. "If you defeat him, you will have proven that humans are not the weak race we believed them to be. You will have shown that there are kinds of power we Corvani do not understand." She paused. "That could change everything between our peoples." Ben met her gaze steadily. "Your Majesty, I didn't ask to be brought here. I didn't choose to fight in your arena. But since I'm here, I'll do what I have to do." Queen Zara smiled, and for the first time it was not the cold smile of a conqueror. "You remind me of someone I used to know," she said softly. "My father, before he became obsessed with conquest and glory. He used to say that a true leader serves their people, not the other way around. What happened to him? He forgot his own words. The empire became more important than the people in it. Winning became more important than what we were fighting for. Her expression grew sad. I killed him in single combat to claim the throne. It was our law. But sometimes I wonder if there might have been another way. Ben was quiet, understanding that she was sharing something deeply personal. Ben Miller, she said, standing to leave. Tomorrow's fight will determine more than just your fate. Win or lose, you have already changed how I see the world. After she left, Ben sat awake for a long time thinking about their conversation. He was beginning to understand that Queen Zara was more complex than she appeared. Beneath the warrior queen was someone who questioned her own culture's values. The next morning dawned bright and clear. The arena was packed beyond capacity. Citizens from across the planet had come to see the human fight Commander Vex. Queen Zara took her place on the throne, but today she seemed tense. When Commander Vex entered the arena, the crowd erupted in cheers. He was even taller than Brutok and moved with the confidence of someone who had never known defeat. Unlike the other champions, Vex wore full battle armor and carried advanced weapons. Energy shields protected his arms. His helmet had targeting systems and threat sensors. He looked more like a walking tank than a person. "So you are the famous human," Vex called out, his voice amplified by his armor's speakers. "I have studied recordings of all your fights. I know every move you have made, every technique you have used. Today, you face true Corvani military science." Ben looked at the wall of technology facing him and realized this would be his greatest challenge yet. All his previous opponents had relied mainly on natural abilities. Vex had the advantages of both superior biology and advanced engineering. The horn sounded. Vex raised his arm and fired an energy blast that could have destroyed a vehicle. Ben dove aside, but the blast followed him, guided by Vex's targeting system. Ben had to think fast. He grabbed a handful of sand and threw it into the air. The particles confused the targeting sensors just long enough for Ben to roll behind one of the stone pillars that decorated the arena. "Clever," Vex admitted, "but you cannot hide forever." Vex began systematically destroying the pillars with his weapons. Each blast sent chunks of stone flying. Ben had to keep moving, staying ahead of the destruction. The crowd watched in fascination as the small human used the arena itself as a weapon. He kicked sand into Vex's sensors, used reflective surfaces to confuse his targeting, and even threw pieces of broken stone to create false targets. But Ben knew he could not keep this up forever. Vex had too much firepower and too much protection. Ben needed to find a weakness in all that technology. Then he remembered something from his engineering training. All energy systems generated heat. All that advanced equipment had to be powered somehow. And power systems always had limits. Ben changed his strategy. Instead of just avoiding Vex's attacks, he began forcing the commander to waste energy. He made Vex fire at false targets, chase shadows, and keep his shields at maximum power. Queen Zara watched with growing amazement as Ben turned the fight into a battle of endurance rather than strength. The human was using Vex's own advantages against him. After 20 minutes of constant firing, Vex's weapons began to overheat. His targeting system flickered. His energy shields weakened. "Impossible," Vex muttered. "My power cells are rated for hours of combat." "Against normal opponents," Ben called out. "But you've been fighting at maximum output this whole time." "Even the best battery has limits." Ben saw his chance. As Vex's shields flickered, he sprinted forward. The commander raised his weapon, but it was too hot to fire accurately. Ben reached him and did something that shocked everyone. He climbed onto Vex's back. The commander tried to shake him off, but Ben held on tight. From this position, Vex could not use his weapons without hitting himself. Ben found the power coupling for the armor and began working to disconnect it. "Get off me, you parasite." Vex roared, spinning and bucking like an angry animal. "I'm trying to save your life," Ben said through gritted teeth. "Your power core is overheating. If it explodes, it'll kill us both. I don't care. I will not be defeated by a soft skin." But Ben had found what he was looking for. He yanked out a crucial power cable and Vex's armor went dead. The massive Corvani crashed to the ground under the weight of his own equipment. Ben helped him out of the disabled armor, checking to make sure the power core had shut down safely. Vex sat in the sand, breathing heavily. "Why?" Vex asked. "Why did you warn me about the overload?" "Why help me remove the armor? You could have let me die." Ben looked at him seriously. "Because winning isn't worth becoming the kind of person who lets others die when they could help." The arena was completely silent. Even Queen Zara seemed stunned by what she had witnessed. Slowly, Commander Vex stood up. He looked at Ben for a long moment, then did something unprecedented. He knelt and bowed his head in respect. "I yield," he said loudly enough for all to hear. "The human has defeated me not just in combat, but in honor." Queen Zara rose from her throne. Her voice carried clearly across the arena. "Ben Miller of Earth," she announced formally, "you have completed the trial of 6 champions. By our oldest laws, you have earned the right to an audience with the throne. You have also earned something far more valuable, the respect of every warrior in this arena." As the crowd cheered, Queen Zara descended to the arena floor. For the first time in Corvani history, a ruler had left her throne to personally honor a defeated enemy. She stopped in front of Ben and removed her ceremonial helmet, revealing her face to all. "Ben Miller," she said quietly, "you have shown us what we had forgotten, that true strength comes not from the power to destroy, but from the wisdom to know when not to use that power." She paused and looked around the arena, her voice growing stronger. "You have fought 6 of our greatest champions and defeated them all. But more than that, you have treated each defeated opponent with dignity and respect. You have healed their injuries and comforted their spirits. You have turned enemies into friends through compassion alone." The Queen's voice carried across the silent arena. "These are not the actions of a weak species. These are the actions of a civilization that has learned to be strong without becoming cruel, victorious without becoming proud." She turned to face her people. "I hereby decree that the war between the Corvani Empire and the human worlds will end. We will seek alliance rather than conquest, partnership rather than domination." The crowd erupted in surprise and discussion. This was not what anyone had expected. Queen Zara turned back to Ben. "You have a choice, Ben Miller. You may return to your people as an ambassador of peace, or," she paused, her voice becoming uncertain for the first time, "you may stay here and help us learn to be the kind of civilization that deserves to stand beside humanity among the stars." Ben looked at this alien queen who had just changed the course of galactic history because of what she had learned from watching him fight. He saw in her eyes not just respect but something deeper, hope, and perhaps the beginning of something that neither of their species had words for yet. "Your Majesty," he said with a smile, "I think both our peoples have a lot to learn from each other. I would be honored to help build that bridge." As the sun set over Corvin Prime that evening, Queen Zara stood on her palace balcony looking out over her empire. For the first time in years, she was thinking not about the next conquest, but about the kind of future that might be possible when strength was guided by wisdom. In the distance, she could see Ben working with a group of young Corvani warriors, teaching them human combat techniques. But more importantly, he was teaching them human values, honor, compassion, and the strength that comes from protecting others rather than dominating them. "What have you done to us, Ben Miller?" she whispered to the desert wind. "And why do I feel like my empire is just now becoming something worth ruling?" The war was over, but something far more profound was just beginning.